Okay, so let's talk about The Raven. And I want you to just forget everything you think you know about it from high school English class. Because what Edgar Allan Poe created wasn't just a spooky poem. No, it's something way more complex. It's an engineered trap. Every single word, from the very beginning to the very end, is designed to create one single absolutely crushing emotion. So let's dive in and break down this blueprint for despair. Right. So the whole idea here, the core of it all, is that Poe literally built a trap. This isn't just a story, it's a constructed environment. Think of it like a prison made of words and sounds, and it's designed to trap not just the guy in the poem, but you, the reader, to pull you right into that same state of absolute, total despair. And believe me, he had a very specific blueprint for how to do it. And that blueprint? It has a name. It's called the Unity of Effect. This was Poe's master plan, his secret weapon, really. And the idea is simple, but incredibly powerful. It means that every single thing in the story, the plot, the characters, the setting, the tone, you name it, is all working together to achieve one single emotional impact. And for The Raven, that one single impact is pure, unfiltered hopelessness. So, if this poem is a prison, how did he actually build it? Well, he started with the foundation, the architecture of sound. And this isn't just about making the poem sound pretty or poetic, not at all. It's about using sound itself as the bricks and mortar to build the walls of this emotional prison. He does this with something called phonetic craftsmanship. I mean, just think about the sounds in the poem, all that heavy alliteration, the rhymes happening inside the lines, not just at the end. It all weaves together to create this hypnotic looping effect. It's an unbroken spell of gloom. And that's exactly why Poe insisted the poem had to be read in one single sitting. If you stop, the spell is broken.
Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. Let's talk about the rhythm. You know, most English poetry has this kind of rising beat, right? It's iambic. It goes da-dum, 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 kind of like a heartbeat. But Poe, he does the exact opposite. He uses what's called a trochaic meter. It's a falling rhythm. Da-dum, da-dum. Just say the first line out loud. Once upon a midnight dreary. You can feel it, right? It's heavy. It's relentless. It's a beat that literally physically drags you down, pulling you right into the narrator's descent.
Okay, so we've got the foundation of sound. Now Poe starts building the walls. And these walls, they are built from pure, unprocessed grief. This is what he calls a claustrophobia of the soul.
See, Poe's goal here isn't to get you to just watch this poor guy suffer from a safe distance. No way. He wants you to feel it. The entire poem is an engine designed to pull you directly into his deteriorating headspace, to make you actually experience that claustrophobia of the soul.
And this is where it all snaps together. Remember that heavy, falling rhythm? That hypnotic looping rhyme scheme? Poe masterfully aligns all of those sounds with the narrator's psychological breakdown. The literary architecture, the way the poem is built, and the psychological weight, what the narrator is feeling, they become one and the same. They're inseparable. You don't just read about his grief, you literally hear it in the very bones of the poem.
All right, so we've got the foundation and the walls of our prison. Now, let's talk about how Poe furnishes it. The symbols of ruin. Because you've got to believe that every single object in that room was chosen for a very specific reason, to reinforce that one central theme, inevitable ruin. What's really happening in that room is a battle. It's a fight between the narrator's intellect, his reason, and the overwhelming darkness of his grief. But here's the thing. The fight is rigged from the start. The whole point of the poem is to show us that even the most educated mind is nothing more than a fragile sanctuary when faced with the infinite abyss of loss. And here are the key players in that fixed fight. First, you've got the bust of Pallas. That's the goddess of wisdom. It's supposed to represent reason and logic, but what does it do? It just sits there, a silent, stone witness to the complete and utter defeat of the intellect. Then there's Lenore. She's the lost ideal, that radiant memory of light that, ironically, makes the present darkness feel so much heavier. And finally, the raven itself. It's not just a bird. It's what some call entropic grief. It's a metaphysical anchor, making absolutely sure that any hope of recovery is stopped dead in its tracks. You know, we really need to spend a moment on Lenore because she is absolutely essential to this whole thing working. She's described as a linguistic ghost, and I love that. Her name haunts every stanza. Her absence creates this massive vacuum, and it's that emptiness that the darkness of the raven has to rush in and fill. Think about it.
Without the memory of her light, of her beauty, the sorrow would have no power. There'd be no tragic contrast. She's the reason the shadow feels so dark. So Poe has built the prison, he's furnished it. Now it's time to lock the door for good. This is the final piece, an inescapable prison. We're about to see how he pulls every single element we've talked about, the sound, the grief, the symbols, and forges them into a circular story with absolutely no exit. And of course, that final lock is the word nevermore. It is so much more than just a spooky catchphrase. It is literally the key turning in the lock. Every single time that word is repeated, the walls of the prison close in a little tighter. It turns the whole poem into a loop, a circular nightmare of thought that the narrator can never, ever break out of. Every question, every hope, every thought leads right back to that one final, devastating word. But here's the truly twisted part. The narrator becomes his own torturer. He starts asking questions that he knows the Raven is going to answer with nevermore. He starts with a question of hope. Is there balm in Gilead, aka will I ever find peace? Then he moves to a question of reunion, asking if he'll ever see Lenore again in the afterlife. He gets his answer, makes a desperate plea, and then he just accepts the final verdict. He is actively, intentionally seeking out the maximum amount of pain. It's this rising crescendo of self-torture, and he's the one who cements his own doom. And by the time we get to that final stanza, the integration is total. It's complete. The narrator says his soul, quote, "From out that shadow shall be lifted nevermore." He's done. He, the bird, and its shadow have all fused into one single permanent image of what Poe calls mournful and never-ending remembrance. This is the final perfect achievement of the unity of effect. So when you step back and look at the whole thing, you realize that the unity of effect isn't just some clever literary trick. It's a philosophical statement. The Raven is way more than just a horror story. It's an argument. Poe is using this perfect, inescapable structure to say something really profound and kind of terrifying about loss. That no matter how much we hope for relief, sometimes the shadow of a great loss just stays. It becomes a permanent, unmovable part of our soul. You know, the poem ends right back where it started, in darkness. But there's one huge difference. At the end, we have the chilling realization that the darkness now has a voice. And that leaves us with a pretty haunting question, doesn't it? Poe showed us exactly what happens when one man's shadow learns to speak with the voice of a bird. So what happens when our own shadow starts to speak?